Thank you, and the honour is very much mine being able to come here and share today with you. What's really amazing is the technology which you were just talking about is going to really transform the industry going forward, and it is really going to be such an exciting time over the next couple of years. I won't pretend to come and talk to you about technology because I'm sure a lot of you guys are a lot more technical than I am, and I'll be really honest. But what I would like to do is just kind of talk to you about where the sector's going and what the opportunity looks like, so that we can then talk about how we can take advantage of that over the rest of the day. So my name's Richard Cockle. I'm the head of the GSMA Innovation Foundry, but also Connected Industries. I run a team which are looking to see how mobile technologies are expanding into other sectors, and they're actually powering the digital transformation of those sectors. So I run a number of those verticals, and we will look at fintech, which is one, and commerce. We also look at smart mobility, and then manufacturing, when we call it digital industries, because we talk about the whole of the story around extraction all the way through to delivery. So very much focused on how do we bring the mobile industry together with the manufacturing industry, and then talk, like our last speaker mentioned, and understand the needs and requirements of those sectors. And then in the Innovation Foundry, what we're trying to do is showcase the great innovation which is happening within a particular sector and tell the story of the business benefits that it's bringing, so that we can then, when you go and speak to one of the business owners and in the manufacturer, we can very much tell the story of how the technology will benefit them, and then obviously benefit them from a business case perspective. So just very quickly, if some of you aren't aware of who the GSMA are, we're a trade association for mobile operators. We have over 750 operator members, but then we also have a wider base, which can be everything from a technology provider through to a bank or to a car manufacturer, and really we do the pieces of work where we take the standards from 3GPP, and as everybody knows, you can take a standard, you can implement it, you can have two people implementing the same standard and it doesn't quite work together. We build that glue in the middle that really does enable interworking, roaming and interoperability. So that's what our working groups do, and then as I said, with my group we attempt to try and showcase those technologies and the benefits of them. But just very quickly, in terms of my main message for today, was just around what the real opportunity is. In a recent report done by GSMA, we realised that the global economy and the GDP is going to grow over to 2030. It's going to be over $800 billion worth of growth. And all of that will come through digital transformation, and that it will come from driving mobile technologies into the different sectors which I described and beyond. And a lot of the technology which you've been talking about and a lot of the use cases which were described earlier on are obviously going to be what happens to the drivers on making that happen. So through the digital transformation of every sector, the mobile sector will grow and it will contribute more to the digital economy. And depending in terms of the role that we want to play as an industry, we'll decide how much of this we can actually take in terms of revenue opportunity. So the more we get closer, the more we understand the needs and the more solutions that we can actually provide, we'll be able to take more revenue benefit and opportunity from that. And then over on the right hand side of the slide, you'll see there's emerging and changing picture for telcos. Telcos were obviously very much driven by a mass market B2C model, but the enterprise is becoming more and more important, and the solutions which are being provided by operators to the enterprise are driving more and more of their revenue. And in a recent report by GSMA, you'll see over the last 5 to 6 years, that revenue's grown by over 10% as a percentage of their revenues. So enterprise is playing a more and more important story into the into the growth strategies of the telco industries as a whole. And this just shows through the research that we did where they're looking. So they're very much taking a look at it from a consumer perspective, and we're seeing a traditional kind of quad plays into television and into broadband and those things. But actually on the top half of this, you'll see how the the sector is growing into different product sets that are supporting the needs of the different sectors. Particularly in this environment, we're talking about IoT, we're talking about private networks, we're talking about all of those kinds of technologies which can enable the products and services to be developed which will meet the needs of those particular sectors. But also there's a realisation of that within telcos. So this is a piece of recent research again done by GSMA, which did a survey around trying to understand what are the priorities of those mobile operators. And obviously you'll see 5G is extremely important. I think we all need to monetize 5G to very much justify the investment that was made in those new networks. But obviously with the introduction of 5G Advanced, you're seeing new capabilities. Understanding how private networks are going to work is going to be key. And I think that's going to be one of the major topics which you hear a lot about at Mobile World Congress this week. We've talked about private networks a lot, but is it going to be an independent private network set up by somebody, or is it going to be one which is integrated into the wider mobile network themselves? What does that look like? How's that going to shape? Obviously cloud is going to be key, and IoT, and I'm particularly excited about the developments within passive IoT, because I really do think that completes the picture in terms of how we can have that complete rounded nature of the work that we do and the services that we provide. And then just to compel the story around why enterprise is so important, you can see the difference between the revenue growth within traditional services, which is around 4%, and those which are services beyond core. So if you just look at that table before, those services, the new services which are developing. So this really is the cutting edge. You are really at the edge of how we're going to transform this industry. So thank you for coming together today and sharing what you're learning. We at the GSMA want to make sure that we can conjure it, and we'll be looking to see how we can work closer with GTI going forward so that we can tell that story in a more stronger way. Because there's a lot of great innovation and development happening in the industry, but it's fragmented. And really what we want to do at the GSMA is bring that story together. You see how much the technology companies are investing in their innovation. We're not taking advantage of all, because we're so fragmented, we're not really telling that story in a way that we should to very much justify the great role that we play in the industry. So that's kind of like a high context piece in terms of what does the market look like, what do the priorities look like. I just want to spend a few minutes just sharing with you. We obviously have a focus on digital industries. We work very closely with our next speaker and the organisation, and with GTI, and we want to continue to develop that. We have a global community which is trying to get that discussion happening. We heard about requirements and understanding those requirements, so we're trying to build that bridge into the manufacturing sector and really trying to understand it, and then try and help our operator communities understand what their needs are and very much understand what are the products and capabilities they need to be delivering. We've got a broad community which has a variety of different members, everything from the industrial enterprise customers through to network operators and the broader ecosystem, and really trying to draw out and build that dialogue. I can remember I've been at the GSMA for too long, a very, very long time, but I can remember being sat in a meeting room in London, and we brought the auto manufacturers and we brought the mobile phone operators together on a global basis. And this is about 2009, 2010, and they started talking about what their requirements were for connectivity in the car. And now look at it today. There's more than one SIM card in most cars these days. So you can see how building that bridge and building that relationship really does work. And I've kind of described some of this already. The aim is to really understand the needs, identify those requirements, tackle those problems where we've got some uncertainty, and build that bridge, and then learn from it and share it. So through the community, through the Foundry, we very much want to share what the learnings are and then drive to the next level. And that's why it's so great to see some of the technologies that we're talking about today. As I mentioned, that group will look at everything from from taking the raw materials from the ground and all of the services, and then going all the way through to the smart factory, a really broad topic, and we can't do that alone and understand that alone. So that's why it's so great to hear the really detailed understanding that you guys are bringing. The topics that we cover are really broad, and you can see we talk everything around trying to understand what does private 5G look like, what does the stuff in the cloud, introduction of the passive IoT stuff will be really key, robotics and autonomous vehicles within factories, and the impact of digital twins. So very much telling the story of how this broad brush of technologies can be integrated together and brought into a very compelling story for the industry going forward. Just to highlight some of the work that has been done, and I know a number of the people in this room has contributed to it. We've got 2 white papers that are out there on the GSMA website, very much talking about how do you upgrade from a traditional factory to one which is Industry 4.0. How do we make sure they're connected, and how do we remove the wires effectively? But I have to highlight there's been a lot of people that have given a lot of compliments to the private 5G and industrial networks, trying to understand what that is. And these papers are developed by the industry, so it's a mixture of manufacturers and mobile telco. So hopefully it can give that broader view. And there's, I think, another topic that you'll be describing or discussing later on today about deterministic networks. I think that's another fantastic piece of work that's being led by China Mobile, I think, within the group, and very much trying to describe that and help to share the best practice and learnings which we're seeing coming from the China region. In case you need some kind of inspiration, we do have our transformation hub, which is it's not just use cases. We've tried to take a perspective of looking at it from a business perspective. So we don't just look at the technology, we look at what's the business rationale behind it, what are the business benefits it can bring, and try and tell the story from the business perspective rather than from the technology perspective, because I think that helps decision makers understand the role that the technology can play. And just with that, if you're interested in learning more and joining up, then please do. We are exactly in the same spirit of collaboration. We want to work together, build some bridges. We want to learn together and become that hub. And I hope you have a great day, and you've got a very exciting agenda, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about what you're doing. Thank you very much.